Welcome to the Carrot Juice Podcast, where we observe society, we digest it, and through the nuance of it all, we attempt to progress forward. We have a very special broadcast scheduled for you today. I am the host of the podcast, Monte Lee, and I am very excited, and I have a first for you guys. We're going to be having a conversation with a 49-year-old self-proclaimed former fat guy who works full-time as a certified accountant. He's also an internal audit manager. He also pulls time as a certified personal trainer, as well as a nutritionist. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to talk about health and fitness, and also some of the trials, tribulations, and struggles he's went through in his life with medical situations that helped him change his life and improve his quality of life. He wants to help you. It is his goal and his motto to help people look great and feel even better. I am very excited and happy to have this conversation. So let's welcome our esteemed guest for the conversation this episode, Kirk D.A. Anderson. For taking the time to speak with us here today, Kirk. For anybody who doesn't know who Kirk Anderson is, could you just give them the elevator pitch on who you are?
Well, thanks for welcoming me to the show, especially since I'm your first guest. So my name is Kirk D.A. Anderson Fitness. I have a YouTube channel. I'm 49 years old. I'm a business professional. So I'm an internal audit manager and a certified public accountant. But I'm also a certified personal trainer and nutritionist. And I'm a former fat guy. Yes, I've been fat not once, but twice. I lost 65 pounds once. Unfortunately, put it all the way back on again. And then I transformed a second time to what you see here. And it's kind of my mission to help people who are the older me, essentially, which is to lose weight, look great, and feel even better.
So I want to take it back to your roots. I want to know where you're from. What was childhood like? Peel it back for me, and then we can just go from there to where you have evolved to.
Okay.
So now, what was it like growing up? Where are you from?
Originally from Kingston, Jamaica. So I was born and raised in Jamaica. Proud Jamaican. I went to prep school, high school, but then I did undergrad in the U.S. I wanted to see snow, so I picked Boston University. Because on TV, snow always looks perfect, right? I didn't know it could become nasty and blocky. I didn't know about wind chill. So anyway, went to Boston, had my first snowball fight. I was a teenager. It was pretty cool. The floor had these kids from the Art Institute of Boston. I guess BU was, selling some of its dorm space, let's say. And they were just really cool art students. And when they found out I never had a snowball fight, they arranged one for me. So that was pretty cool. Did that, graduated, went back to Jamaica. Started working. My background is accounting and finance. Then I decided I wanted to get an MBA. So I came back to the U.S., went to University of Notre Dame, go Irish. So I'm a mandatory fan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, graduated from there, started working, got into risk management consulting and internal auditing, which is what I do now. And, like a lot of people, when you come from another country other than the U.S., you tend to put on weight. That's what happened to me. I was sometimes chubby as a kid in Jamaica, but I was never really fat. But then, I became a mess here. It's access to all the bad food, blah, blah, blah. Became inactive, unfortunately. Put on a ton of weight. And like I said, I lost. And I wanted to try something different to lose weight. So instead of running or lifting weights, I discovered triathlons. This one I lived in Houston. So I signed up with this triathlon program. Came with coaches, a nutritionist, etc. And, a group of people who were working out. So that was pretty good. That's what helped me lose that 65 pounds. Unfortunately, I was as weak as a girl. I mean, literally, no exaggeration. The barbell with no weight felt heavy. No exaggeration. So I wanted to put on some muscle. Unfortunately, I didn't fully know what I was doing. I did get stronger, but I put on too much fat as well as some muscle. And then I just fell off the wagon and became a mess and got even fatter than when I lost the 65 pounds. Fast forward to 2017. moved to South Florida from Michigan, and I go to the beach, and I'm literally the only fat person there. I look around like, these guys in their 20s, that's why they're slim. They're like, they're in their 30s.
How did that make you feel?
Did not feel good. Did not feel good at all. At all. And it's funny because I just saw a thing on the news the other day, and I did a video about it. When we think of people not feeling good with how they look, their image, etc., we tend to think of ladies, but there are a lot of men out there that suffer through this problem, right? I forget what the percentages are, but they weren't good. Like 60, 70% of the guys are unhappy with the way they look. And I was definitely one of those guys. Some are even suicidal. Thankfully, I was never that bad. Pretty confident guy. But I definitely was not happy with how I looked. You wear the baggy shirts and all these kinds of things to try to hide things. But in South Florida, it's hard to hide things, let's say. And I wanted to go to the beach. I got lucky. I was working out, and I saw this lady who looked incredible. And she had this cap that said IFBB. And on a hunch, I went to her and said, hey, does that stand for International Federation of Bodybuilders? She said, yes. She's a pro bikini model. So she looked very girly, but she's crazy strong, as I realized later on. She could leg press like 600. Wow. Yeah, I know, pretty strong. So I asked her, do you do coaching? She's like, yes. So can I hire you? She said, yes. And one thing led to another. And I'll always remember, she looked at my program, my workout program, and she said, I'm going to give you a real workout program. Because at the time I didn't have shoulders. And she's like, okay, we're going to have you doing shoulders more often. And that's when I started to realize, it took several years to figure this out, but most people who are not happy with how they look, or they're overweight or what have you, the two things that are holding them back, which definitely held me back rather, is lack of knowledge and pride. Or to be more blunt, ignorance and arrogance.
Yeah,
I didn't know
elaborate more on that.
Yeah, okay. I did not know what I was doing. Some of the things that I thought were true were not true. I didn't know what I did not know. But I said, hey, I'm smart. I'll Google it and I'll figure it out. But at some point you have to acknowledge, after decades of failing, which is what many of us have, is that you don't really know what you're doing. So you can need some help, right? Or you're going to spend a ton of time. And actually had already spent a ton of time, by my own calculation, a couple thousand hours, actually. No exaggeration on that. The other part, like I said, is the pride or arrogance. You think you can just figure it out. But you wouldn't go to court and represent yourself, most likely. You'd get a lawyer, right? So this is one of the reasons I'm a big fan of going and finding somebody who knows what the heck they're doing to get help, professional help. It's a lot more efficient, effective, and it will definitely work. At some point in time, you just have to acknowledge you don't know what you're doing. Because the other part is there's this myth out there that when people are overweight, they're either lazy or they're just secretly eating a ton of food. I tried many times. I would lose, fail, gain again, blah, blah, blah. Lots of people have tried and failed. I felt like I had a sledgehammer. I was trying to cut down a tree, denting it, but not really cutting it. And this lady came along. She gave me an axe. I started chopping, seeing progress. I had two other coaches after her. They gave me chainsaws. And I just kept getting better. And, once you actually start to see progress now, you're motivated to keep doing it, right? You're less likely to quit. Plus, the person can hold you accountable, et cetera, et cetera. So that was, because now I'm 49 and I'm in far better shape than when I was in my 30s or my 20s, right? Significantly stronger. Like last year when I was 48, I deadlifted, my PR was 405 pounds, squatted 315.
Wow.
I mean, hell, probably like a month or so ago, I could still bench press 315, for like one rep, but I could still do it. So I can just imagine what I could have done with my 20s if I knew what the hell I was doing. But hey, it's better late than never. That's the way I look at it. And the other part too is probably more important is I found a deeper why. Because it's not enough, in my opinion, to just want to change how you look. Usually it's not enough, right? And it's also not enough when people tell you, people were telling me for years, my parents, whatever, you need to lose weight, or the doctor, blah, blah, blah. That usually doesn't, you have to find this deeper why. And for me, it was like two things. Is that beach incident, sitting there on the beach looking around and realized I'm the only fat person. And two, I was sitting in the courtesy shuttle going to the dealership to pick up my car, and I felt this crazy weak feeling go through my body. And it turned out when I went to the doctor, I was pre-diabetic. He said, you're this close to being diabetic, right? And so that scared the hell out of me. My
that's what I was just going to ask. How did that make you feel?
Scared the heck out of me. Scared the hell out of me. Blood pressure was pretty high. It was like 180 over, 120, 130, something crazy like that. I still have pictures, but I would usually keep the ones, for sure I saved the ones where it was my best blood pressure for the readings, where it would go down to like 160 over 120 and nonsense like that. So I was kind of a mess physically or health-wise as well. And this stuff messes with your self-confidence. You know, I couldn't brush my teeth in one go. Like to bend over.
What do you mean by that?
So to bend over and brush my teeth, my lower back would fatigue and I'd have to then stand upright and literally take a break and then resume brushing my teeth, right? Which is obviously not good. But
and how heavy were you at that time?
235. You know, you don't even need to be. Well, a lot of people say that's not that heavy, but it actually really is, because our views of what's normal has changed over the decades, right? My mother is 5'6". She said she weighed 130 pounds when she had me, 140 when she had my brother. My mom was an executive. She sat on her butt her whole corporate life. The first time she went to gym, I was late teens, right? So that generation is just different. You know, nowadays a lady is 5'6", 130. She's going to the gym all the time, most likely. It's not likely that she's just not going to the gym. Yeah. So things have changed, how we eat, move around, or the lack of moving around, the bad eating, the environment, you know, so many more toxic chemicals here, mess with hormones, this, that. There's a lot of factors that make it more difficult in today's world, let's say, to be slim and normal compared to how our parents or our grandparents looked back then.
And you talked about your mom sitting for a lot. Would you say one of the biggest reasons why so many people, it's affecting so many people, and the problem with the epidemic of people being obese has to do with the sedentary lifestyle?
Yes, big time. I mean, when you sit, it only takes like a couple minutes for all sorts of bad things to start happening, you know, with brain function or metabolism, etc. Yeah, sitting is pretty bad for you, incredibly bad for you. So when I eat, and I learned this when I was pre-diabetic, you know, I always walk afterwards, 15 to 20 minutes, because it's great for blood sugar management. You know, I'd prick my finger, check my blood sugar. It was noticeably like 20 points different or what have you. It's a really big thing because usually we eat and we just sit down, right? And that is just no bueno, no good whatsoever. It also helps your body to, digest the food better, et cetera, et cetera. And the sedentary lifestyle is a real thing. I remember the first time I got a Fitbit, so now I'm wearing the Apple Watch and also this Oura Ring. I think I was doing like 2,000 steps a day or something crazy, or less than that. It made me very aware of how little I moved. You know, when you're a kid, if you forget something upstairs, what do? You just run upstairs and get it. As an adult, you think, do I need to get that thing now? I'll get it later. You try to justify.
Or you struggle walking up the stairs to go get it.
Yes.
And you walk up there and you say, you forget, what was I coming up here to get?
Here for? Yes, exactly. So, you know, we just slowly, because there's this old saying, do you slow down because you get old, or do you get old because you slow down? You know, my dad is, 76 now? Still in great shape, right? Still super fit, but he's always lived that life his whole life. So now if he falls, he'll get back up. A lot of people in their 60s, if they fall, they're going to the hospital. Most likely fracture something, break something, etc. But he done martial arts, yoga, what have you. He's always lived that life his entire life, which makes a huge difference, right? So, yeah, I'm a big fan of movement. I used to not respect walking many years ago, but walking is incredible. And if you think about it, most of us at some point in time have seen some very big person just start walking and they just start to lose a ton of weight. They weren't going to the gym. They may not even have changed their diet, but just that moving. And it's not that it's burning a lot of calories. It's that blood sugar management, which is incredible, right? Because that's where a lot of us get into problems. That inactivity is just no good. It just messes with everything. It's kind of like when you're cooped up in your house for a while and you start to feel, what is it called, cabin fever or what have you. This urge you have to go outside is not in your head. Your body wants that vitamin D, it wants exposure to the sunlight, and it wants to move. It's just not natural. When you look at older societies, the only time they went inside in some small structure was to sleep or to have sex. You know, that was pretty much it. Other than that, they're outside moving around constantly moving around, right? And you see it in some poor countries still, where whenever I go back home to Jamaica, I've been to Africa, not been to South America, but Asia, you notice in those cultures where they move around, the people are just slimmer. They're not going to the gym. Like when I land in Jamaica, I'll always see these people working at the airport. I know they don't have the money to afford to go to a gym, but they're lean looking. You know what I mean? They're not big and muscular, but the arms will be toned, the guys. The ladies' legs are toned, and they're not going to any gym, right? But they're just forced to move around a lot more. And just that constant movement just makes everything look. You see it in Europe a lot, too, because the great public transportation. New York would be a big example. When you go to New York, you see a lot of good-looking people, for lack of a better word. Granted, New York attracts a lot of those people, but my theory is that, they move around so much there compared to other parts of the U.S. where you have to have a car, right? So it's just easy to be sedentary. A lot of people will jump in the car to drive to the mailbox, right? I walk down to my mailbox. It's, like 8 minutes down, 8 minutes back. So that's a good 16-minute walk, right? Just walk down, grab the mail, blah, 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 and come back. And it's those little things to try to keep you moving a lot, right? So let me see. Now it's, 7:15? So I got 8,600 steps today. So after I finish talking with you, I'm probably going to go to the gym. So I should be 12,000 steps at the end of the day, most likely, right?
And those cities that you mentioned and those places that you mentioned, all of those places are walkable, or people walk for a need. And how you mentioned New York City, that's a very walkable city.
Yes.
So people are automatically just going to be walking around just for their lifestyle.
Yes, exactly. And, when a thing is like that, it's easy to do it. What do I mean by this? When I was in Michigan, it was easy to get fat and cover myself up. Talk about it. Just cover yourself up. We're in South Florida, there's a ton of hot bodies here. And it's easy. It's good peer pressure. Let me put it this way. Right?
Speak on it.
When I went to the gym, I remember this LA Fitness in Delray, which is where I was living. I was wondering, are they screening people before they come in the gym? I'd never seen so many good-looking men and women in a gym in my life up to that point in time. It was crazy. I sat down and tried to calculate it. I honestly can say more than 50% of the guys and women in the gym, and this is a lot of people. It's not like it's 30 people in the gym, looked good. They were at least good-looking, and some looked fantastic-looking. You know what I'm saying? And there's not like there were a bunch of 18-year-olds either. These are people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. Hell, someone in their 50s, right? And I remember thinking, this is crazy, but it was a great environment, right? Because I saw what working out hard looked like, because you could see guys grunting, women, whatever. And anybody that's passionate about a thing, they will happily talk to you about that thing for free. So I'd see a guy or a lady like, why are you doing this thing that way? And or what is that? And they would stop and they'd explain. And then you try to do it. They would literally coach you for free. They'd watch you and say, this just happened a couple of days ago at the LA Fitness. So this guy doing something with triceps, with one hand, pulling down at a certain angle. And it's like, why are you doing that? And he was explaining. Then he's more muscular than me. And I was doing it. And then he said, oh no, bring the elbow forward, twist more as you rotate. And he started coaching me as I did it, right? But anytime somebody's passionate about a thing, they will happily help you for free. So this is, so far has a lot of gyms that look like that, or places that are designed or, to pay money, whether it's cosmetic stuff. I think so far is number one for that cosmetic stuff. So people down there like to look good is the point. And I guess it's good peer pressure because similar to New York, it wouldn't surprise me if some people in New York that are slim, when they got there, they were not slim, but they were forced to conform, basically, because of peer pressure. They looked around, a lot of slim people, or they were forced, as you pointed out, to walk, and slowly but surely this organically happened, right? It took me almost 2 years to transform. It didn't happen overnight. The overnight stuff is just nonsensical, right? I mean, you can make a big transformation in a year, right, without a doubt, but my transformation, I would say, 1.5 to 2 years, basically. It took me to do that. Yeah, just about that.
And when did that start? When did the transformation for you start?
2017. So I moved here March 2017, so late 2017. Yeah, March, April, May, June, July. It's probably around the summer. Yeah, I'm at the beach. So around the summertime of 2017, I would say. And it took 1.5 to 2 years to... Here's a funny thing, right? So because I'm analytical as well. So I discovered, I knew to get my resting metabolic rate tested. So for those who don't know, that's the amount of calories your body burns not doing anything. If you're just to lay in bed all day. Then when you move around, you have other things like non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and then you have a number, total daily energy expenditure. But your BMR is a critical number. So mine was terrible. It was like around, when I lost the 65 pounds, if you go back even more years, the nutritionist made me do that test. So I knew about it. And it was like 1,000 or 1,100 calories, which is terrible. That's like what a child would burn.
And do you happen to know what that should be on average for a male, what that should be at on a normal male?
Yes. Depending on height, age, weight, it varies. But like I just did mine a couple of weeks ago, and it was 1,973. And I like to say 2 years ago when I did it was like 2,000, 2,100 or something like that. Granted, ever since I started YouTube, I was working out less. So it wouldn't surprise me. And I'm obviously 2 years old. I'm 49 years old now. But I'm in the normal range, right? One of my clients just did it. They're around my age, around my height and weight, but they have more fat than muscle, so they want to lose some fat.
Absolutely.
Theirs was in the 1,200s, just to give you a perspective, right? Thankfully, theirs isn't as bad as what mine used to be, which was like 1,000, 1,100, because this is what's called metabolically adapted. When you yo-yo diet, you try all these different things over the years, and you fluctuate, blah, 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 your metabolism slows down. Mm-hmm. You remember the TV show The Biggest Loser?
Yes, I recall it, yes.
Yeah, so, these people would come on, they lose hundreds of pounds. Most of them put it all back on. Because to win in those shows or to you have to lose the weight rapidly, too rapidly. So when it drops at 200 pounds, it's not 200 pounds of fat. It's a combination of fat and muscle. And it's a stress on the body. You don't want to be losing muscle, generally speaking. They lose it very quickly, so their metabolism now slows down. Even when you do it properly, your metabolism will slow down to adjust for what's happening to you. Now, the problem is you've crushed your metabolism, so it's not like mine now. Like I said, the BMR, RMR, same thing basically, 1973. So let's say it's 2,000 calories. What that means is when I wake up, if I do nothing, I burn 2,000 calories. Now, if I move around and work out, that's a lot more. So I can go out and splurge and eat and blah, 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 and I don't get fat. I stay the same. As a matter of fact, the last couple of years when I would go on vacation, my weight would either stay the same or I would lose weight. And in Jamaica specifically, I remember the first year this happened to me. I wasn't tracking food back then. And the scale came back and I was like, maybe I imagine things, but I know I ate a ton. So the second Christmas in Jamaica tracked. I was eating 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day, eating / drinking. And this is not healthy stuff. It's Jamaican Christmas cake, which is a rum cake and a fruit cake mixed in one. They marinate the fruit for like a year in white rum. Strong. So I know in the U.S., fruitcake doesn't have a good connotation, but trust me, it's literally the best cake you'll ever have in your life. No exaggeration.
You said they marinated for a year?
Yes, a year. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's a serious thing. You only get this thing at Christmas. It's called a Christmas cake. But you have to imagine a rum cake mixed with a fruit cake. That's essentially what it is. So I eat that daily. Then I'm eating macaroni and cheese and ham. Because ham in Jamaica for Christmas time is kind of like turkey in the U.S. for Thanksgiving. It's just a traditional thing. So I'm basically eating, 4 things. Jerk chicken, the ham and macaroni and cheese, and the cake. That's all I'm doing. Oh, and sorrel, which is a drink in Jamaica. Again, something made only at Christmas time. They take this fruit called sorrel, it's red, and they soak it for a couple of days in water, and the water becomes red, and they add rum to this. Again, white rum, usually. You drink it like a lemonade. Okay. So I'm drinking sorrel every day, eating cake every day, macaroni and cheese and ham and jerk chicken. This is how I get to 4,500 to 4,000 to 5,000 calories. So it's not healthy or anything. But the scale after a week or two, this would not change. And I remember my second coach, bodybuilder, told me he once went on vacation in England and he's drinking, eating like crazy, and he lost weight. And this was a big dude, much bigger than me, like 230 of all muscle, right? Huge dude. And it's a funny thing. It's almost like when you pay your dues, you can then splurge for a fixed period of time and get away with it. It's like the rich getting richer. Because I've paid my dues by eating well and keeping my metabolism up. Because I eat now like 2,800 calories a day, just about. And I stay pretty much the same weight, same musculature, etc. What that means is if I then jump that up to 4,000 or 5,000 calories for a brief period of time, my body's not going to go, oh, let's store fat. It doesn't work that way. As a matter of fact, my body will be like, oh, everything is okay. And this is another reason why diets do not work, right? Because when you're starving yourself, your body doesn't know you sitting there purposely not eating, or you in a jungle somewhere being hunted by some hostile tribe and you can't find food. You're stressing the hell out of your body. So 99% of the people I've helped losing weight, I have to increase their calories. This lady, this black lady I helped lose 50 pounds, or almost 60 pounds now, actually. I increased her calories like 90%. I'll say that again. I increased her calories like 90%. Not all at once. It's very counterintuitive, because the reason you get fat is because you ate too much food, you could argue. But funnily enough, to lose weight, most times you need to eat more food.
And why do you need to do that? And why do you need to do that exactly?
So when you're metabolically adapted, like we're talking about earlier, and your metabolism is slowed down, the best way, pretty much the only way to jumpstart it, is to feed yourself more food, because it's slowed down because you're starving, right? So to fix it, you got to feed yourself more food.
It slows down because you're starving.
Yes, because think about it, right? If you're trying to survive, right? You're on a desert island and you're trying to survive, limited food, your body's going to start slowing things down. It's like, well, we don't need this. Let's turn this down. Let's turn that down. It's like you're running low on energy reserves. It's like you're trying to conserve in your house. You know, oh, my electric bill's too high. Let me start turning off some lights. Oh, I'm low on food, you know, because my budget is tight. So let me not buy this thing. Let me buy the bulk pack or whatever. Your body's just trying to survive at this point in time. So it's going to slow things down. That's essential. And it's called metabolically adapted. This is what happens. Yeah. And so there's a famous study with the Biggest Loser people. That's why I brought it up. If you Google Biggest Loser study, I think the guy's name is Hall, the doctor. And he talks about it. And there are other studies on this showing pretty much the best way, almost the only way to fix this, is to increase the food, right? I remember the first time I ran into this concept, there was a podcast. It was called Fat to Fit. It doesn't exist anymore. It was two guys. One was fit and slim, and his friend was well over 300 pounds. And they used to say, eat to be the thinner person you want to be. But they were talking about eating more food. And I was like, huh. And at the time, I lived in Houston, I was losing the 65 pounds. I remember I told you I was weak as a girl, no exaggeration, or weaker than most girls, I would say. I was doing this thing called a bod pod, getting my body fat tested, and it was like $25 because it was through a hospital. I guess it was subsidized or something. I don't know. Anyway, they're like the third or fourth most accurate thing. You sit in this thing that looks like an escape pod for a science fiction movie. Very cool. And you sit there and it does your body fat and tells you, your muscle. And after a while of losing weight, I noticed my muscle started to go down. And I was like, what the hell? The nutritionist had me on like 1,200 calories or 11. It was a very low calorie.
Yeah, that's interesting. That seems like the opposite of what it would be.
That's what you think. But if you think it through some more, it makes sense, because muscle is a luxury. You don't really need what your body will keep, right, is fat. Back to the desert island scenario. If you can bench press 300 pounds, you're a tall, big guy, right? So whatever level of strength you have, if you're on that desert island, your body's going to slowly drop that muscle. Think of a marathon runner, right, versus a sprinter. The marathon runner is lean, slim. They're not big and bulky because the body's we're not carrying on all this weight to do what? We're not jogging 26 miles all this weight.
To look good on the beach. Yeah. Come on now, Kirk. Go ahead.
Right? So with a sprinter, the same thing with a lion and a cheetah. The lion is powerful and muscular, but it can't run fast as the cheetah. The cheetah can run fast, but it's not powerful like the lion. You see it with sports. A point guard compared to a center. The center is big, but they're not as quick as a point guard. In all animal life, you see this phenomenon, let's say, right? Small and quick versus big and powerful. It's not an accident, right? And again, if you're on that desert island, dying, starving to death, your body's just going to shed muscle, but it will keep the fat because it doesn't need, all this kind of muscle I have now. I remember hearing an interview with this Navy SEAL, all right? It was one of those fitness parties, and he said every time he'd go in the field, he would drop like 20 pounds, 15, 20 pounds. The muscle, whatever muscle he would build up while he was lifting weights, doing CrossFit and stuff.
Why did he do that?
No, his body would do this. He didn't want to lose the muscle, but what he pointed out, when he'd go in the field, his body would just be like, yeah, we don't need this muscle. We're walking around with this heavy ass thing and moving around, and his caloric intake would go down because he's not sitting there devouring thousands of calories to maintain the muscle. If I don't eat enough food, this muscle will disappear. I'll just slim down. You know what I mean? So he's out in the field doing his, special forces stuff, and this body will just be like, yeah, we're not lugging around all this extra muscle. We'll start to shed this stuff, right? So it's kind of like my coach. I said during that week he was on vacation in London and he lost weight because he wasn't devouring the amount of food that he usually devours, right?
So what would you advise? I'm trying to think about it from the point of view of somebody who is in that situation that you were in when you got that dilemma, when you heard about your health situation and you were like, you know what, I want to make a change. What would you advise a person to do if they're trying to be more healthy? They don't necessarily want to have a, bodybuilder physique, but it seems like what you're trying to say and what you're saying is, ideally you would want to be healthy and at least functional, being able to move around, being able to do the daily tasks that you want to do. Because if I recall correctly, your brand is tailored around getting normal, regular people healthy. So what would you advise that approach if somebody was trying to make that approach?
So the first thing is exactly what they want to do. So let's think of a triangle, right? With 3 points, you have health on one point, you have aesthetics on another, and you have performance on another point. To maximize any of those three, something's got to give on the others. So for somebody to step on stage to look shredded, look incredible, that's not healthy. That's not maximum health, right? And it's not maximum performance either. There's a reason when you see professional athletes, they're not shredded usually. Not unless they got great genetics, right? They have some fat on them. They don't, the real, if Batman was real, he wouldn't look like comic book Batman. Just think of boxers, right? The typical big boxer, they're not shredded because they need some fat on them to go through the training, to get blows, etc., etc., etc. And similar for health reasons, you're usually not shredded. For performance reasons, again, it's going to be different. If you're trying to run, you're doing some Ironman triathlon, the training, you could argue, obviously, you're fit and healthy, but yeah, it's still stressing out your joints, your body, blah, 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 blah. Now, in terms of, so that's the first thing, trying to figure out what they want. But let's say they want a balanced approach or more on the health side. The next thing to look at is, though, the main thing here is food. It's always about the food. You cannot work out a terrible diet. So you want to find somebody who can coach you on nutrition. That'd be the number one thing. Find somebody that knows what the heck they're doing with nutrition. And there's a lot of nonsense out there. One of the best ways to find that is that, first of all, they themselves should not look terrible. That would be optimal. The first thing, right? You wouldn't carry a car to a mechanic whose car is always breaking down, as an example, right? They don't have to look like on the cover of a magazine or anything like that, but they should at least look the part, let's say. Secondly,
understandable.
You want them to optimally show you like a track record of people that helped, et cetera, et cetera. Because the unfortunate thing is there's just so much nonsense out there. And it's even worse than I originally thought. I think you have like two groups of these people out there. One, they don't know what they're doing. And second, the second group are what I call bad people, for lack of a better word. They know exactly what they're promoting is terrible, but they do it anyway. So like I have a guy, what did he lose? 60 pounds in 3 months, I like to say, on the HCG diet. The HCG diet is garbage.
What is it?
HCG. They inject you with something called HCG. I forgot what the thing stands for. But the reality is the reason the HCG diet makes you lose weight is they put you on like 800 calories, or it might even be less than that per day. So if you weigh 230 or hell 180 or whatever, and I put you on 800 calories a day, you will lose weight. Especially if you start working out, right? Guaranteed. But again, you're going to run into the same problem those people in the Biggest Loser come in. You're going to destroy your metabolism. So that guy who lost 60 pounds in 3 months, he put it all back on in 6 months. So now this guy lost 60 pounds, right? Mm-hmm. Some of the 60 pounds, unfortunately for him, would have been muscle. But I guarantee you, every single one of those 60 pounds that he put back on was 100% fat. So he's worse off than before. And some of these people know it. That's why I call them bad people. They know what they're doing. They sell these gimmicky stuff, waistbands, sweatbands, nonsense. Like, oh, wear this waist trainer, you will slim down your waist. Or rub this cream on your belly and put saran wrap and all this nonsense. Or take this supplement, you look like me. But they don't tell you, I don't take that supplement. Or I'm on steroids. Or this or that, right? it's a lot of nonsense out there. Plus, they can fake the photographs. Worse, they can even fake the video now. So you have a lot of misinformation out there, I'd like to say. But the main thing is, again, I would highly recommend do not try to do this on yourself. And don't just go to the local gym and just grab some random trainer. Because the other problem is, how to put this? Two things. First of all, that trainer might have just been somebody who's always worked out all their life. They might have been involved in some kind of sport. So they look the part, but they couldn't coach themselves if they could go back in time. Because they don't really know what to do. But they were either involved in football or running or this or that. So they look the part, but they don't really know anything, to be honest, right? And there's a strong urge for them, and also from the clients, unfortunately, it goes both ways, for them to come up with exotic exercises. Most people, when they work out, they want to feel like they worked out. They want to sweat, they want to feel sore, they want to feel something, right? And trainers are going to feed into that by giving them exotic stuff. Well, let's have you do burpees, jumping up and down, or doing some kettlebell swings, or something with ropes, or this or that. So I used to tell friends before I started coaching, right? Particularly female friends, when you go to the gym, ask your coach, this trainer, why is it that all the other people in the gym who look awesome aren't doing this thing that you have me do? Because if you go in a gym, right, I'll ask you this question. Where do you typically see the hottest bodies in any gym, male and female? Which part of the gym?
All of the compound lifts.
Exactly.
So the squat rack, bench press, deadlifts, all of that.
Exactly. That's where they are. But you typically find the trainers with people training in this other section, jumping up and down in boxes or playing with ropes, battle ropes, right? Or kettlebells, doing some exotic stuff.
And
so
that's all. And that's all like what I think about when I think about that. I think about like, are you familiar with the movie Rocky?
Yes. Yeah.
I think about the Rocky montage when it's Eye of the Tiger is the thrill of the fight. Dun, dun, dun. You know, it's good for an Instagram reel. It's good for a story to get the sweat on their brow and them doing this and doing the burpees and all of this and having the face. But is it really going to help you? It's good in moments to do some HIIT workouts. But I would say that if you did strictly that, it's not going to be sustainable, and there's other issues with it. But go ahead and
that's a great point, because people love HIIT. You just said not sustainable. So increased risk of injury, right? Especially if you're older. And it's just harder. You can walk on the treadmill relatively easy, or on a Stairmaster. You can get the sweat going 20, 30, 40 minutes. You can play with your phone. You can watch something on the screen, listen to something. It's something you can do week after week, month after month, year after year. That HIIT stuff is pretty difficult. It's not called HIIT for no reason, right? And if you're doing it properly, it will crush you. Now, some people love it, whatever, but it's mentally harder to do that several times a week than it is to walk on the treadmill, or just to walk outside, or walk on the Stairmaster. It's very easy to do these other things, right? So you got HIIT, high intensity interval, and you got LIST, low income steady state, right? Low impact steady state, rather. This one is easier, and it's almost like an insult to injury, because when you go to those gyms where you have a ton of these hot bodies, they're not doing HIIT for their cardio. They're chilling on the Stairmaster or the treadmill, which is, if you look at any of these bodybuilder types, because those are typically the people with the most fantastic bodies, right? The people you see on the cover of magazines, whether it's a lady or a guy. Most of these people, they're not doing HIIT exercise. They're lifting heavy things, and then they're doing some steady state cardio. Like they're just sitting there pedaling the bike, like the spin bike, right? And they're not crushing. They're not going, They're more like a regular pace kind of a thing. So to me, it's like they get to have their cake and eat it too. Look good is like my slogan, right? Look great, feel even better. Because I'm all about like I said earlier, looking good to me is not enough, typically. I tried that many, many times, but it was the right set of factors at the right time. I was unhappy how I looked, and the health thing. For different people, it's different things, right? But it's usually not just enough I want to look better. Or it's usually not just enough, I want to be healthy. It's usually something spurs them. Like when I ask people, if you tell me you want to lose weight, I ask why. You say, okay, I want to be back to my basketball playing weight. Why? Because I want to wear this suit. Why? Because, I want to get out there and feel good about myself. Why do you want to feel? Because I feel bad. And then I start digging into the true reasons. And that, once you can bring that out of somebody, it helps them. They're much more likely to go ahead and not quit. And it gives them a better idea because, the opposite extreme. I've had 2 times people pay me money and they didn't do anything. Literally nothing. And they paid me. Because I realized in hindsight, they weren't mentally where they needed to be. They wanted to do something and they paid, and then they just never did anything. And at the time, I didn't know what I should have asked, things I should have said to get them in that space. And now I know to ask these things up front. You know what I mean? I would ask you from the get-go, what's different this time around? I'd ask you, have you tried things? You tell me yes. I'm like, what have you tried? Okay, what's different this time around? Right? I'm trying to figure out, are you willing to go to war to transform yourself? Because it's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Right?
So you try to find out now if they're committed, and then you also try to find out their why before you even invest time. So what did you do in those scenarios when the people paid you? They just wouldn't show up for the workouts? They just weren't committed? Or
no, so I don't do one-on-one workouts. I do online personal training. The same thing my coach.
Okay, got you.
So I talk with the person, get an idea based on your lifestyle, what you want to do, et cetera, et cetera. I create a customized meal plan and workout plan for you, which is what the coaches did for me, right? But literally gave them the plan and they just kind of ghosted me, or they just slowly faded away, but they just never did anything, really, to be honest. Never asked for their money back or anything either. So, it was kind of strange, but at the time I thought it was strange, but I realized not. Because I remember I interviewed my first coach, right? And it was amazing to me when she said, I think she said she only has a 60% success rate. And I remember thinking, that sounds crazy. Only 60% of the people do what you tell them to do. And I remember thinking, that's insane. This woman looks fantastic. She made other people look really good. It was boggling my brain. Why would people not listen to her? Because I listened to her, right? Mm-hmm. But then knowing what I know now, I realized that, I could see this. I could definitely see this, right? The person's not mentally ready. They're trying, but they're just not there. It's like sometimes people sign up New Year's resolutions, right? I want to lose weight. So they sign up for the gym. They stop going, but every month, rather, their credit card or debit cards gets billed. Because how gyms make money, right? They don't make money off people that go regular. They make money off people who don't show up. This is how they make money. That's how they make all their money, right?
And everybody that goes to the gym knows, no offense, I rock with people and I like people that are coming and trying to better themselves.
Yes.
But everybody that is a person that goes to the gym regularly knows the new people that come in on January and February. And by March, we all know that 80% of them will be gone.
Yes. And that was me, man. I was in that bucket. I would show up and I'll be gone. And when I started going to the gym regular, I started noticing that phenomenon. You start seeing the regular people. And you're like, hey, what's up? You don't even know their name, but you said hi, and they say hi to you. And, maybe you talk, maybe you get to know their names or whatever. But it makes a difference. But like I said, that deeper why, right? Because another thing, I remember it was embarrassing for me to get a haircut. When I'd go and get my haircut, the barber would go, yee, and my scalp would just flake like it was snowing. So I have dermatitis, eczema, and psoriasis. All of those things magically disappeared when my diet cleared up.
Wow.
So there's studies showing both things. Some studies show organic is great, and there's some that show it doesn't do anything. And my view on this is I use critical thinking and common sense. Why would if this was broccoli with no pesticides, or this was chicken that ran around outside doing chicken things, or fish that swam around the sea versus a fish tank, why would I not pick this? Or why would I go with this broccoli where I wouldn't squirt a little pesticide in my mouth? Why would I do this? Right? So all things being equal, I might as well get the clean one. And I know from just my personal experience, once I started eating clean and just cleaned up my environment as well, all these problems disappeared. I used to joke I was making dermatologist wealthy. I had prescription shampoos, prescription lotions, and all those things I didn't need them once I cleaned up my diet. They just all went away. And whenever I eat bad for too long, I'll start breaking out again. Usually behind my ears, start get flaking, my eyebrows, my scalp will start get itchy and red, or I may want to scratch it. Just no bueno. So I highly recommend. And nowadays, clean food is significantly healthier than it was before. The only two things out there still expensive are beef and seafood. Seafood, for sure, you can buy it on sale. I'm talking like wild caught stuff. No matter where you're here, whether you have a Publix, a H-E-B, a Kroger, a Whole Foods, whatever, that section in the supermarket eventually will put seafood on sale. You can just buy it in bulk. The person back there will cut it up for you, package it, you throw it in your freezer, you thaw it out when you're ready to cook it and eat it, right? The beef is still expensive, but everything else, the vegetables, chicken, other kinds of meats they're very affordable. Plus, you'll pay far more in the long term with your health care. You can legitimately go bankrupt.
That's a good point.
With terrible health care, right? So, and I remember a guy, the first Whole Foods I used to go to when I lived in Texas, he was one of the butchers. He used to work, I think, one of the major supermarkets, let's say. And he was talking about how even though the free-range chicken was small at Whole Foods, he said it was still the same thing because the other ones, part of the reason they're so damn big, he said, is the water in them. He says they're not that big. I forget what they said, whether they added the salt or whatever it is to suck up all this fluid. It's misleading. You know what I mean? And a chicken shouldn't be as big as a damn turkey. Some of these chickens today, I think what they call them the plumpers, it's very sad actually. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this. The chickens, they're so pumped full of hormones. They're so big that when they walk, they can only walk a couple steps and then have to sit down. Because their legs can't hold the weight and their legs will break and all those other kind of things. Anything that's fed to the animal is going in you, right? So when they say these studies on beef being bad, there's none of these studies on grass-fed beef. It's cows that are fed corn, GMO corn, all this other kind of nonsense. Or I'll use pigs as a good example. The internal organs of a pig is the closest to a human being, all right? When they do autopsies on pigs that do pig things, play in the mud, eat all kind of garbage, like what pigs are supposed to do, all their internal organs look normal. When they do on pigs fed the GMO stuff, they see like cirrhosis of the liver, they see heart damage, all the bad things you see in humans, right? When you're not eating right and all this other kind of stuff. So the way I look at it is, where you see smoke, you see fire. I remember this interview with this doctor, Dr. Devra, D-E-V-R-A Davis. She was talking about cell phone. It's a totally different thing. But the analogy is important. She said, the thing with science is this. First they see smoke, then they see fire, and this takes maybe decades, and they do studies to confirm that something is bad, like smoking, as an example. It took a long time before they could confirm smoking a cigarette could lead to lung cancer, blah, 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 blah. But there was lots of, no pun intended, smoke to signify something could be wrong. And she said, you don't want to wait till they prove something is bad for you. You already see signs. Like in my case, if I eat bad things, I break out. Alcohol is a good example, all right? If I drink regular red wine, some California red wine, there's a good chance my sinuses will go crazy. Like one nostril will clog up or something. You drink organic wine or some wine from Italy or something, no problems. Right? A friend of mine I used to work with, she said, she went to Italy with her husband. And she said, Kirk Anderson, where the cafes, drinking the wine, everything is good. Come back to the U.S. Her husband would get a migraine drinking wine. And I was like, it's all the preservative and crap in the wine. Right? I remember the first bottle of organic wine I ever got from Whole Foods. After a couple of weeks, I poured and went to drink. I went, it had turned to vinegar. Because it didn't have the preservatives. I carried it back and told him the wine is bad. And the guy explained, I was like, I didn't know. And they were nice enough to give me a new bottle. Right? Whole Foods has great customer service that way. But anyway, to my friend, I said, go to Whole Foods, buy a bottle of organic wine, probably cost you like $10-12. If it fails, I will refund you the money. She said, Kirk, we drank the whole bottle, no headache. It's little things like this. I don't need a study to tell me that thing is good. I just need to use my critical thinking and my damn common sense, right? It's not an accident. And as a bonus, I can't prove this, but maybe I should do some research on this. I feel like, because I've had people tell me this before, I feel like the organic stuff hits them harder. For sure, it has less of a hangover. I've tried this. I've gotten like organic, what's the thing called? Tequila. And I've tried it with like gin and tonic stuff. And this is a great experiment if you like to drink, for you or anybody who's watching.
I'll try it. I'll definitely try it.
Get the organic stuff. You go to one of those, those big alcohol stores that will have that stuff. You will notice, no exaggeration, the next morning, there's no hangover. There's no nothing. Literally, there's no nothing. Because a big part of what makes you have all the bad stuff is not alcohol. Alcohol is a part, but it's all the extra garbage that they put in the alcohol, right? This I'm 100% sure on.
So something that somebody doesn't have a nutritionist, just to do some recap here, you would say you should probably go for organic meat, poultry, fish when you can.
Yes.
And
Organic
as well
and free
and
range.
products in general when you can. Now they're going to cost a bit more.
Yes.
And I know some people are going to push back against you because they're going to be like, inflation is at an all-time high.
Yeah.
I recently went to a local butcher shop that I go to, and I bought a bag of a 10-pound bag of chicken breasts,
Okay.
like I usually do. And I was surprised because I hadn't been there in a while. And this bag was usually like $30, and it was $65 when I got it, because the price of chicken went from around $3.50 to where I'm at to $6.50, and that was on sale. So the price of meat has gone up, but I still would say that it's better for your body, and that it also is cheaper than ordering out all the time, which a lot of people are doing. The epidemic of the Grubhub and the Uber Eats has really started to plague the community. And we talked about in the past offline, we talked about how the community is being plagued a lot by the obesity epidemic, especially minorities when it comes to the unhealthy eating, sedentary lifestyle. And also there has been some studies, if I recall correctly, of people in at least the Black community having some pre-existing conditions just from genetics as well. So it's like a triple threat that's affecting the community.
Yeah, there's a lot of things there to go along, because one thing I would say is, as Black people, we have great genetics, So I'm going to say something a bit controversial. This is my personal theory.
Go ahead.
The only benefit that ever came from slavery is we have fantastic genetics. Why is this? Growing up in Jamaica, pretty much the history I learned was Jamaican history and a lot of slave history and some European and a little bit of American history, right? So if you think about it, to get your ancestors getting to, your case, the U.S., my case, Jamaica, it's a lot of people that had to die for them to get there, right? And then terrible conditions, blah, 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 right? If I look at it objectively, it's a lot of survival of the fittest, you could say. It's not an accident. So, for example, I learned this in history. A lot of the slaves that came to Jamaica were from the warlike tribes, right? When you compare a warlike tribe to a farming tribe, the warlike tribe tends to be more athletic, for lack of a better word, right? It makes sense. They're running around doing war stuff, right?
Absolutely.
They're not farming.
Warrior lifestyle.
It's not an accident that Jamaica, over the decades, have produced all these world-class athletes, way before Usain Bolt, right? From black and white TV times, there was a guy, I'm drawing a blank now, who was in the 100-meter finals of the Olympics, right?
Usain?
No, way before Usain Bolt. Donald Quarry. Right?
Okay.
So this is from before you and I might have been even born, right? From this tiny little country, he's making it to the 100-meter finals of the Olympics. So there are people in the NBA or the NFL who trace their heritage back to like a Jamaica or some other country, right? Not just Jamaica. My point being is we have really good genetics. So like some of the issues that plague, say, us here in the U.S., when they go and check, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I probably should have researched this. What's a good common thing that bothers African Americans here?
I would say high blood pressure.
Something that's they more say it's unique to us. Let's say I just can't think of one. But I remember when they look at, say, people in Africa, they don't have the problem, and we're the same genetics. So my point being, it's more environmental and lifestyle. So for this, I can say for sure. When you look at identical twins, right? So they're identical twins. One could have diabetes and other problems, and the other one does not. So they're both genetically predisposed to this, but lifestyle trumps that. We like to think of it as like Russian roulette. I have dermatitis, eczema, and psoriasis. Maybe you don't. So in my gun, I maybe got my chambers are all loaded. I can't afford to keep pulling the trigger. It's gonna go bang. You could eat all kind of craziness, and your scalp is fine, right? You don't get red behind your ears, the itching. You don't get any of those problems. But I can't do that, right? So I know in Africa, there were some things here, I just can't remember what, that in Africa they don't have, and we're the same genetic people. Or look at skin cancer would be a good one. closest to the equator, they have the lowest rates of skin cancer. I mean, nobody uses sunblock in Jamaica. We're always out in the sun. We're always out in the sun, right? The only time I put on sunblock was going to the beach, and it's because I'm fair skin, right? But
yeah, I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, in Jamaica, most Caucasian people aren't running around putting on a ton of sunblock, and we don't have like high rates of skin cancer or anything in Jamaica. Skin cancer rates have been increasing when sunscreen uses have been going up. Very counter.
That's an interesting fact right there.
I mean, how did people manage 200 years ago without sunscreen? Let's say you're Caucasian. How did your great-great-great-granddad manage 200 years ago? He didn't have sunscreen. Why didn't he get cancer? Why are you getting skin cancer? It's not just the sun. You know what I'm saying? He
spent more time outside as well.
Exactly.
Probably adapted to it better.
There is probably that. But, there are a lot of theories, but the environment now is just way more toxic. If you Google umbilical cord females, or if you Google with black females, you'll see studies showing how many known toxins are in the umbilical cord. That's going straight to the baby. When you and I were born, there was a lot less of that stuff. Like how many kids in your school were asthmatic?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
A lot. Too many to mention.
Yeah. When you were a kid, you had a lot of asthmatic kids in your school? Or would you say it's now? Okay.
More now, but definitely where I grew up as well, it was in a lower income community. So there was a lot of people eating a lot of junk food. So there was starting to become that thing. Because I'm 33. So there were more people that were overweight when they were getting into middle and high school I saw.
Because I'm 16 years older than you. So, for example, when I was a kid, there wasn't much asthmatic kids. There was like no kid with, ADHD really, or autism and all of these kinds of things. Nowhere near as prevalent as it is nowadays, right? The environment is just way more toxic, unfortunately. And people, like hormone levels, testosterone levels have been going downwards over the years, right? I like to say, I saw this crazy stat the other day, like a teenager today has lower testosterone level because his great-grandparents or something like, great-granddad or something like that. But they've just been steadily heading downwards, which is unfortunate. Again, the environment we live in is a lot more toxic than before. So bringing it full circle to what you were saying about what to do, again, find somebody who knows what they're doing with nutrition and definitely try to start detoxifying your life. Because a lot of things we're suffering with, we wouldn't have to suffer with if we didn't have these external factors going on. Like for years, I suffered with my skin problems. Didn't know if I stopped eating certain things, those skin problems would go away. You know what I mean? I just didn't know, unfortunately. But at least now I do. And what I say, knowing is half the battle.
Yeah, I would say for me, and I would say definitely just kind of bringing it home here, I used to work out all the time.
Okay.
I was a college athlete. I worked out almost 6 days a week for like 6 or 7 years. I was in tip top shape. Yeah. I never was a personal trainer, but I was jacked. And since I started creating content and doing my podcast, I fell off. I stopped working out. I hadn't worked out in like the past 9 months consistently, but I'm still pretty slim frame. I got a little bit of a stomach, but for the most part, because I had did so much of that work beforehand and I was an athlete, I would say my metabolism is higher than most people. Definitely. But one thing that I've noticed and I'm starting to realize is I miss the mental aspect of working out that I used to get, that serotonin release, those endorphins. I miss that and I feel weak. I feel weak because I'm not going and throwing that weight around like I used to. And even if I look aesthetically similar to what I did, I don't feel the same way. Yeah. And I think that's one thing people don't realize. I think working out and being a fit person and having a fit lifestyle helps you in your mental more so than anything else. I think it's 95% mental. Yes. And so many people, the reason why they get into bad shape and they're not feeling healthy is because they are not feeling right mentally. They're depressed. They have anxiety. And then they get in a cycle where they're eating or they're being sedentary or they're getting down on themselves and they're not working out. And it's interesting. The solution to feeling better is just going and moving. And no, you don't have to feel intimidated by the people at the gym. The people are going to be cheering you on and glad to see you there. And you need to make it part of your lifestyle, not just trying to get an aesthetic body. If you go there and work out, you'll eventually get that, but you just need to start moving.
You are so right. That's great insight, because the two versions of that you just described, you and the other people, have been both. So up until probably 3 months ago, the previous 4 months or so, or maybe even 6, I was sporadically working out. It got to a point where I've calculated or I estimated I was working out once every 2 weeks or something. And I still looked pretty much the same. Nobody was saying, oh, Kirk, you look different on YouTube now or anything like that. But to your point, I felt different. I wasn't feeling as good, and I didn't realize I was missing all those endorphins being released, help keep your stress down, etc. So by just going out, I was getting some workout by doing some push-ups before the live stream or something, but that's about it, right? So now that I'm back in the full swing of things, again, I feel great. Because if I did something like this at this time, I would just stop, be done, and say, call it a night or whatever. But now when I finish talking, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to feel great afterwards, which will make me feel good tomorrow. Because you're right, most people don't realize how bad they feel till they feel good. I was one of them. You have never been one
right there.
Yeah,
that's a bar right there.
You've never been
Say
one
that
of
one more time.
Yeah, most people don't realize how bad they feel till they feel good. So true. It's like trying to describe sex to a virgin. You can tell this person, hey man, this thing called sex. It's great. It's incredible. But you got to do these things to get it. And they're like, yeah, man, I don't know, man. Video games are cool. I don't know. It seems like a whole lot of work. Right? A whole lot of work. So I was definitely in that bucket, man. I didn't realize how bad I felt till I felt good. Like I said, the brushing the teeth, or I bend over, my knee hurt, my back, to this, to that. All these ailments, for lack of a better word, I was dealing with, right? Or not being happy how I looked, etc., etc. Those could all have gotten away. And I was pretty fortunate being raised with two loving parents, so I was always been a very confident guy. I remember this lady I dated once told me, it's crazy. She had a PhD, I don't remember what in, but it's basically something where she studies people. Let's call it for that. And she said, it's funny. You have the confidence level of somebody who's like 6 foot tall with a six-pack abs, but you're 5'8" and chubby. And she said, at first I thought it was fake, but then, and she was a pretty woman too, so, and she was like, but then I realized it's not fake. And she was like, why are you so confident? And the only thing I think is my parents raised me that way, right? Because, how you're raised makes a huge difference, right? If you tell a kid, repeat, hey, you're smart, or you'll be successful, they'll believe that, and it's not fake. You know what I mean? So thankfully, I was lucky that even when I looked bad, let's say for lack of a better word, because I always remember when that DEXA scan said I moved from obese, I lost a bunch of weight, and it still said I was still fat. I was at the office, people were like, oh man, you look great, you lost so much weight. I was like, no, I'm still fat. They're like, no, you're not fat. I was like, that machine says I'm still fat. You may think I'm not fat, but that machine ain't lying, man. It says no reason to lie to me, because I was just that, my body fat percentage. I think I started at like 35. I think when I got tested, I think it said 33, but this is already after I'd lost a bunch of weight. So I was at least 35%, which is terrible. If you think about it, a third of my body was fat. It's just awful, if I think about it from that perspective, right? So, yeah. You hit the nail on the head there. So many people, which I guess I summarized, they just don't know how bad they feel until they feel good. Because there are a lot of overweight people that are genuinely happy. I see it. I was one of them. But, there's some people, they're just really happy. They're always smiling. They're laughing and everything. But I've never heard or met somebody who was very big, like I was, or bigger. Well, technically I was obese. I guess you'd be morbidly obese then, who lost weight and said, you know what? I don't like this. I would rather be the old version of me. I've never heard of such a thing. Never heard of such a thing before. So no matter how happy they are or they were, they become happier because, like you said, the endorphins get released. They feel better how they look in the mirror. Their health gets better. Their brain, everything gets better. It's kind of like when somebody stops smoking. Within minutes, their body starts getting better. And days later, it's noticeably different, from a medical point of view. So, yeah, I like what you said, where you said you dawned on you that you were off. It took me months to figure this out because I wasn't seeing much difference visually. And I'm so big. You know how it is. You're doing this new stuff. It's super busy. You got a full-time job, blah, blah, blah. And you're pumped up. You're an ambitious guy. You're smart. You want to accomplish something. You want to get, and you're focused. And I wasn't, just like you, I wasn't picking up that, man, things are starting to fall off here. Mm-hmm. You know, so.
I'm glad that you're like acknowledging that, because I think a lot of people need to hear that. Having a lifestyle where you're healthy and that you're living that lifestyle, it's not going to always be constant. Yeah. But once you make it a part of your lifestyle, you'll miss it. I miss it. I started grinding on doing content creation and podcasting and stuff, and I genuinely miss that, because naturally I'm a goofy person. Like, I'm a fun-loving guy. Yeah. I've always been somebody that's like rallied around people, and I was like a captain on my basketball team. Okay. I love the competition of like just being around like the sport environment. And in the gym, I'm the type of person where I go, I squat. It's something about going and like cleaning up that squat, you know, and feeling good. Your blood's pumping. There's beautiful people all around that makes you want to hit that last squat a little bit more, because it's just like, I can't let her see me struggling, even though you struggling. It's something about that energy that is infectious. And I want so many people, if you're listening right now, do me a favor and test yourself starting today. And go to the gym, and you don't have to ego lift. No ego lifters out here. If you just need to start with the bar, start there. That's what I'm going to have to do dang near, because I am going to be struggling because I haven't been in there. But you could really benefit mentally from getting back in the gym, getting healthy, and living a better life. I think that's a good place to put a bow on this conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with me today, Kirk. Where can the people find you who want to get some more knowledge from you, get some coaching? Where can people find you? And we'll also put links in the show notes in the description.
All right, thanks. It was a pleasure being here as well. Great conversation. So if you just Google me, Kirk D.A. Anderson Fitness, you can find me on my YouTube channel or on Instagram. It's pretty much always Kirk D.A. Anderson. My website is kirkdaanderson.com, and you can find me on anywhere else at Kirk D.A. Anderson. That's pretty much it. Thankfully, if you Google me, you will find me. Kirk D.A. Anderson Fitness. And again, it's a great way to end the conversation. Like you said, great call to action. And even if you prep to go to the gym and you don't make it, or you go there and do anything, that's actually progress. I used to dismiss things like that, but if you pack your gym bag or you put the shoes by the door and you don't use them, you know you're still closer, because before you never had a gym bag packed, you didn't put your shoes by the door. So eventually you'll get there. A great way to end things.
And something that you just said right there, as far as packing your bag and having the gear, there's something that James Clear talked about in the book Atomic Habits.
I read that. I read that book.
Yes, it's a beautiful, it's a great book. And he talked about making your process, your system easier. And what you should do, if you plan on going to the gym, pack your bag, already have your water bottle in the bag, already have your gear on. Some people might even already put on the gear. So you just lessen those choices you have to make to go fulfill the outcome, the goal that you want. And you can also tie this back to other people who are successful. If you look at Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, they are very successful because they limit the choices they have to make every day, because that takes away bandwidth from them. So why don't they wear this? If you look at Steve Jobs, he wore the same black shirt and jeans and, you know, not New Balance shoes almost every day. And he didn't do that because he wanted to be a weirdo. He did that because he had so much mental bandwidth that he was doing, trying to create the iPhone, that he opened up his capacity for that so he can make and create great things. Open up your capacity to be healthy and to work out by already making the choice to pack your bag and have it ready to go, so you can go out and be healthy and get that body and hit those squats like your boy gonna be trying to do when he gonna be struggling. So that's been another episode of the Carrot Juice Podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time, Kirk, my guy. And we're gonna have to do something like this again. I really think that this is a valuable and important conversation. So I appreciate you taking the time. And until next time, we'll see you.
All right. Take care.
We're going.